I'm Chris P, and a couple years ago I decided to get together with some artist friends and record our conversations while we draw, maybe have a couple drinks or two. It's probably not funny, the audio quality's not so great, we broke the 180 rule and had to flip the master shot, but if you like listening to artists talk about drawing and shit that happened to them, then maybe this is for you. It's called The Tongue and Pencil.
Here we go. It's another one of these tongue and pencils.
Right on. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah.
Is there a camera I'm supposed to look at?
You could look at that camera if you want to mug it up. Jody did that a lot.
Okay.
Jody looked at the camera.
A lot
it
of
worked, right then when Jody. Yeah.
Wait, let me see if I can do a Jody impersonation.
Yeah.
Is that like Jody?
That's pretty much exactly like Jody. Like,
this is normal.
You need to have like a coffee. You need to be holding a coffee cup.
I'll pretend I'm holding a cup.
There you go. A perfect impression.
Yeah, I gotta say it was probably pretty perfect.
So anyway, we're here with Jon Schnepp, and we go back a long ways. We made a lot of cartoons together.
We did.
And we're gonna draw pictures. We're gonna bullshit a little bit. This is an experiment. Every time's different. There's really no goal other than to have two pictures drawn.
The goal is to have some drinks and talk, right?
Oh yeah, here we go.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, man. Great. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
So I usually start off with asking just like the simple shit. So you were born in New York, right?
I was born in the Bronx at
Yeah.
Einstein Hospital, which accounts for my incredible intelligence.
So and how long did you live in New York?
I lived as a tiny pupa creature for 2 years, and then my family moved to Connecticut when I was 2. So I don't have any memories of New York except for going to visit my grandma all the time in the Bronx. Her and my uncle lived in the place that my mom grew up in.
So you grew up as a young child in Connecticut then?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Connecticut, I grew up in West Haven, Connecticut, which borders Milford. I grew up right on the shore, right off of Jones Hill Road, and right across the bridge was on Oyster River was Milford. So what separated West Haven and Milford was Oyster River. Oyster River.
So how'd you like living there?
I thought it was all right.
Basically what I'm getting at is like, when did you start developing as an artist? Did that influence you? Did living in Connecticut have anything to do with it?
I don't think so. I think my interest in horror movies and comic books got me interested in drawing. And it was one of those things where I liked Godzilla and I liked monsters. And I think my very first comic book was Where Monsters Dwell. And it had like this big squid creature, which I recently just rebought. Nice. I saw it at this cool convention and bought it.
That's awesome.
I think the creature's name was Spore. Sporr. Spore lives again! He's like, oh, coming over this weird castle.
So yeah, eventually I usually get into influences, but let's go into it right now. Mm-hmm. So comics, horror movies.
Monster movies.
Who are your big influences in those genres?
Well, for me, in comic books, it was Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Steve Ditko.
Yeah.
Wally Wood.
Right on.
And that's where it kind of started for me. I really loved the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And
Marvel,
yeah, mostly Marvel. I mean, for me, it's like it was the Batman TV show with Adam West, and then.
So when you were a kid and you saw that show, did you know it was campy or did you take it at face value?
I didn't know what the word campy meant, but I took it at face value that it was funny. I didn't think it was supposed to be dark, grim, and serious. I was like, Batman's climbing up the side of the road. Him and Robin are climbing up. They're going to meet somebody again. Someone's going to pop out of the window, and say hello.
I had no idea that show, was like jokes. I thought it was like legit superhero danger when I watched that.
Oh, right on. Yeah, well, I loved Cesar Romero as the Joker. I loved all the villains. I thought they did a fantastic job. But yeah, I mean, that's what kind of got me interested in all that stuff was drawing superheroes. I think Ray Harryhausen had a big effect on me as a kid. I remember drawing the Cyclops from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad.
Yeah, man.
And I made paper cutouts of him and put him in front of a fan, and he'd move around.
I fucking loved Ray Harryhausen. I remember I was afraid to see Star Wars when I was a kid, and my dad made this deal, and I wanted to see Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger.
Right.
It was a big Harryhausen movie, and my dad made a deal. It was a great deal. Now, in retrospect, he was like, "Well, I'll take you to see Star Wars, or I'll take you to see Sinbad, but then we have to see Star Wars right after it."
Because he really wanted to see
He wanted to see Star Wars, right? And I was like, okay, I guess, but like Chewbacca and the TV commercials scared the shit out of me. And then, of course, I fucking love Star Wars.
I went and saw Star Wars with my sister.
Yeah.
I had to bribe her with my, I think we had $3 allowance every week at that time, and I had to pay for her movie ticket.
Really?
I was
She didn't want to see Star Wars then?
Well, I was too young to go by myself, and she was a year and a half older, so my parents were like, if you take your sister, you can go see it. And I had to pay for her ticket. And she really loved it, which irritated me more. I was like, well, can I have my allowance money back? She said, no.
No fucking way,
Yeah.
man.
So but that's how I saw Star Wars. That was the first time I saw it. The second time I saw it, I was in camp, summer camp.
Oh, really? That's a cool
All
camp
of us
that
went and
shows
saw
Star
it.
Wars. Oh,
And then-
you went to go see Star Wars.
Well, in camp.
That's
Yeah.
cool,
All of us
man.
went as a trip.
That's
And
awesome.
then the third time I saw it, I had to convince my parents, who didn't understand why I wanted to see a movie a third time.
Yeah.
They're like, but you've already seen it twice.
Yeah.
I was like, you don't understand. I need to see this movie again, and you haven't seen it. So they went and saw it with me, and so I got to see it for a third time. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. So anyway, back to influences. So we're all influenced by Star Wars, of course. There's no getting away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this though, I was already a science fiction horror fan way before Star Wars came out, because I remember hearing about it as called The Star Wars. Even though I was like 7 or 8, I was already getting a bunch of these Star Trek magazines, and my dad turned me on to watching Star Trek, all the reruns of Star Trek and Twilight Zone. So it was pretty fun to already be kind of a geeky science fiction kid, knowing how cool Star Wars was going to be, but not knowing the effect that it would have on everyone. I just knew it was like, oh, this is going to be great. So
Yeah, you thought it was going to be just another like science fiction movie that would be like, well, that'll be in Starlog and nobody else will know about it.
pretty much, yeah. It was like, but it was, it was so much more.
So when I look at your stuff, I see a lot of Kirby influence in your stuff, like a lot of like, the power cosmic kind of like
Right on.
vibe. When did you start drawing? Did you look at a lot of Kirby when you were forming your style?
Yeah, like I said, Where Monsters Dwell was primarily drawn by like either Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko.
Yeah.
So that kind of informed a lot of my style. With Spider-Man, I immediately started drawing Spider-Man, monsters, and Batman. So I started drawing a whole bunch of those. I drew my own comic books. I still have
What
a bunch
happened
of them.
in those comics?
Well, Spider-Man would fight somebody like, called the Bouncer. I came up with a bunch of my own villains, or sometimes we would fight Green Goblin, but they were a lot of fun making my own comics, and
I bet.
I just went on to, keep drawing. I never stopped drawing, so I ended up taking a lot of art classes in elementary school, and then once I went to high school, I applied and got into this like a magnet school, sort of like the Fame School, but it had music, dance, theater, and art. So I got into this cool like magnet school where I would go to regular high school in the morning, like from 8 till 11, and then I got to leave. And we all got in like a little short bus. It was me and like, they picked like, I think 3 or 4 people from each school.
Yeah.
From all around Connecticut, and they would drive them into this main school in New Haven.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I got to go to this, it was called the Educational Center for the Arts. And
Did
it
you
was
meet
on
any cool people
Audubon.
there?
I met a lot of cool people. That was kind of like my mini college. That's
Yeah.
why I went to art school.
Yeah.
Because the people I met at this Educational Center for the Arts were all already had mohawks and dyeing their hair, and this is, in the 80s. So
Yeah.
it was it showed me like you can actually have a really good time making art and expressing yourself.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the school, the Art Institute of Chicago. So
Yeah.
that's the college I went to.
Yeah, yeah. So what did you learn there?
I learned how to think freely
Yeah.
and to express myself. I think I came away from not going to a regular college. I kind of stopped drawing comic books per se and started painting and doing sculptures and doing performance art and getting more artsy, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, do you have an approach to your art? Like, to your drawing or to whatever art? Is there a process that you use?
I think my approach to almost everything that I do for myself is stream of consciousness. And, you know, I don't even come at it with an idea off the bat. I just let the ideas flow out, you know, naturally, and then they start to take form, and then I'm like, oh, there's an idea, or there's something, you know.
The stream of consciousness. I could dig it. I think a lot of the work that I've seen supports that work I've seen of yours, supports that theory. So is that something that you know, college art school like helped you realize, or you come about that on your own?
I think college really helped me
Yeah.
with that process.
So
the ability to just think freely and not second guess myself.
is that when you met Tommy Blacha?
I did. I met him in my freshman year of college. I was at this dorm called the Herman Crown Center, and I was originally on the 11th floor, but I got kicked off the 11th floor for causing a lot of chaos with my friends. We would, like, you know,
What kind of chaos?
well, we had, you know, balloon fight, you know, water balloon fights with the I think the basketball players from DePaul, which turned into a violent fight, which is what, you know, originally was like, ha ha, funny, throwing stuff, and then became fists. And then basically causing just a lot of chaos on all the different floors. So they figured they should separate the main troublemakers, which was me and these three other guys, James, Kevin, and Mike. So they took us and took us off the 11th floor and split us up and put us on all these different floors.
Yeah.
So I got put on the 9th floor, and about 3 or 4 weeks into that, I was like, I don't have a roommate. I got my own room. This is awesome. And then Tommy showed up. He had just gotten out of the Army. So he was you know, at that time I was 17 and he was 24. So I was like, whoa, this guy's like lived the life, and he had tons of stories.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stories.
Yeah, we got lots of like fun drug stories and crazy, like waking up to like Canadian Mist whiskey in an empty bottle. He'd put it right under my nose, so that's the first thing I smelled, and instantly had to go yak because we had drinking the whole thing. But he was a lot of fun. He was a really great. He still is. He's a great person. He's just one of the funniest guys I know. So
Yeah, I could dig that.
definitely a great, you know, thing to be his roommate.
So, tell me more about the kinds of performance art you did back then. Like, what would you do? What is it?
I would call him like
What's performance art?
performance art. What I would do is more like you know, one man show theater. It was like comedy theater.
Gotcha.
But with
So it was more comedic.
It was
than
very
like,
comedic.
it wasn't like serious.
no,
performance
like
art.
look at me, I'm a rose, a thorn, a rose. Yeah, it was more like I would tell stories and then have videos or films click on or turn on while I would time everything out, so it would be a multimedia showcase for a story that I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun, and I did it for I think from my very first year all the way through graduating, and then I actually won a fellowship award with my performance art.
Nice.
So it was kind of cool. It was a prestigious award. It was like third place of all the school, like BFA and MFAs. Everybody competes, so I was a BFA, so it was kind of fun to beat out all the MFA people.
Yeah.
And win third place, and I won like $3,000 that I wasted that summer.
Hey, that's what you do when you're young, right?
Yeah.
And you met a lot of people in Chicago, right? Like
I met a lot of people.
Like I know some of them, like Goo and Ariel and Dan
Yeah.
Bigelow and Dave Foss. And
I met all those people.
All those folks, right?
Yeah, I met a lot of guys that's how I actually got into making, you know, directing cartoons. Was like kind of a long journey, but it started out by friends of mine who were college friends who ended up starting a music video company,
Yeah.
And they did 9 Inch Nails for his music video, and they shot that at my house. So
Right
I was sort of by de facto, whenever they needed like a weirdo or some guy, they would be like, Schnepp, you want to be in this video? So I'm in a lot of these videos from the early 90s.
Yeah.
Like I'm in an Ozzy Osbourne video, I'm in an Iron Maiden video, I'm in a bunch of these videos from the 90s. And then they started hiring me to just be a PA, like, hey, help me build like this oil and glass rig. So I started building stuff, and basically just kind of hanging out at this cool music video shop.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Dave, who I had gone to college with, he was a few years before me. But then once graduating, he was living right across the street. We started writing comedy sketches together. We came up with this weird science fiction comedy show, and then we ended up raising money via some of our friends, and H-Gun came in as a business partner to...
H-Gun is the music video.
Yeah, the music video
Yeah.
company. And we shot these 3 episodes of a TV show called Mad Science.
Yeah.
And,
I seen some of those.
Yeah.
I remember when you were transferring them
Yes.
from the 3/4 tapes
I know.
to digital media.
Del Close, who's really well known, is like training in John Belushi, helping through, a lot of people, including the Upright Citizens Brigade, who I ended up meeting all through Mad Science. Was Del Close brought all these comedians and people to be cast in the film.
Nice.
So it was a really cool situation, and though the show itself never got sold, it kind of started my career.
Gotcha. Nice. When I'm trying to think of the timeline. So when did you move from Chicago to LA?
I moved here in the beginning of '98.
98. So when did you work on Space Ghost?
That was in 19. Oh, I think it was 1995.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
so
like-
that was, you went down to Atlanta for a little bit.
Yeah, I'd done this. I think when I met you,
Yeah.
I was working for MTV. I had worked for MTV doing this interactive video game called Club Dead.
Yeah. Yeah,
And-
because we met in the late 90s, I
Yeah.
think, like mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I met you around the same time I met Eric Calderon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I art directed and edited and storyboarded this interactive movie for MTV because they hired me because of what they saw from Mad Science.
Yeah, gotcha.
So that was I think it was in 90. Yeah, that was also in 95.
Yeah.
The person that was directing the Club Dead movie was going out to Atlanta, and he suggested me as an editor for Space Ghost because the people in Atlanta were all burned out, and he's like, I know a crazy weirdo who can do a good job editing this. And I learned how to edit because my friend Ivan DeWolf bought an Avid. He bought one of the first 100 Avids in 1993.
Wow.
And that's how I learned how to actually
lucky.
edit. Yeah. I was like,
I'm using the thing. I'm using it.
oh.
Nice.
I might have to swap out in a
Did it.
second.
Yeah, I remember the first thing that I saw of yours that I was aware of you. I remember being like tertiarily aware of Club Dead, but I didn't know you or I didn't make that connection at the time. But the first thing I saw was Flack Crisp, which I
Oh.
thought was fucking hilarious. Remember,
That's right.
somebody, it was like circulating around the office when I
Right.
was on MTV, and they're like, yo, check this weird shit out.
Yeah.
That was great. You want to talk a little bit about Flack
Sure.
Crisp?
Flack Crisp is a thing I did. It stars Nick Offerman, and I made 15 episodes. They were like interstitials, and I've never done anything with them since. But I told Nick, I was like, "Hey, man, YouTube is aware of
Yeah.
Flack Crisp. Maybe I'll have to pop him on." And he was like, "Do it, man. He's gonna put the outfit on. Maybe
That's awesome.
do something." So
Nice.
yeah, it was really fun. It was like a weird, like serialized adventure starring this guy that Nick played called Flack Crisp, and it was called Flack Crisp Total Action.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was it would begin with him like strapped to a rocket, and he's like, I must get off this rocket. If I twist my body at the appropriate angle, I can, there, I've done it. And then he's like flying off the rocket, lands, and all of a sudden he's absorbed by a weird cube and taken into some underground layer by a supervillain. And he's like, now I have you, Flack Crisp, to be continued. So every episode was like, he's stuck in some weird thing, escapes, and then gets recaptured.
Dude, that's a lot like the 60s Batmans. At least the first part,
I'm sure.
It's like,
It was
what's
like-
he going to do? Oh, you find out in the second one he coated his stomach with buttermilk.
That's
so it
right.
don't matter.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like more of an ode to those kinds of Flash Gordon, serialized, Will he escape? Tune in next week. And then he escaped.
He'll escape.
Yeah. Oh, you better believe he escapes.
So then you set up your own thing out here I remember when I first visited your place, half of it was because you live in like kind of like a bifurcated house. What do they call that? Like a duplex?
Yes.
Yeah,
duplex.
so half of it was your production studio.
Yes.
And half of it you lived in.
Yeah.
And it was full of people the first time you were working on that weird, what the fuck was that one called? It was like this kind of like 1 point perspective room, and there was this weird dude standing there. And fuck, I'm not doing a good job of remembering. I should have done research on this interview. I was so confident in my ability to remember.
What was I working on?
Projects. I don't know. It was some fucking surreal cartoon.
Right.
And it was like, I remember just like these shots of this room and this weird dude standing there and saying weird shit. And I'm sure that describes about like 100 cartoons you've made in the past.
I don't remember, but I moved out here, and I had a cell animation company with my friend Pete Moriarty, who graduated with me in college, and he worked on like the KMFDM music videos, and I worked on those, and he did this crazy, awesome animation, and I had just gotten this job to be the animation director on this Nickelodeon series called Patchhead.
Oh, I love Patchhead.
So
I saw that, I think, before I knew that you had done Patchhead.
Right on.
I really dug it.
Yeah, Patchhead's a super weird thing made by a friend of mine, Greg Harrison. And it's basically about a kid who wears a watermelon on his head and likes to ride around. And so we shot the whole thing green screen. We built these miniature props, and it was a lot of fun to make. But it was my first big job. So, and then Pete had just gotten this big video game job. So we were like, hey, why don't we, we had been doing work for HCon, and I was like, why don't we just combine forces and make a company and do some animation together? And he was like, all right, let's do that. So we started this company called Behemoth, and that lasted a good 2.5 years. And I realized I didn't want to be a cell animator, because it was like back then in 1996 and 97, you had to draw.
Hard.
You had to draw every single frame. We didn't have a lot of these workarounds or in between stuff. We had to draw everything. So unless you were just doing like a 2 or 3 frame cycle,
Yeah.
But so I kind of started doing this other stuff, more live action, and I was like, my girlfriend at the time, Kim, had done a lot of hair and makeup, and we decided we wanted to move out to LA. I had just finished directing the Upright Citizens Brigade pilot in New York, and so I met those guys because of doing the Mad Science show. And they wanted me to come out and work with them on their new TV series. Originally, they had sold it to HBO, and I designed their room and their transporter and a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I remember it had that sci-fi opening to it.
Yeah. So I shot the opening for their show and a bunch of stuff like that. But decided to move out to LA, and that was really a good choice. I ended up finding that place that I'm still at.
Yeah.
And just started making my own stuff. I started a company just called King Robot. So I just was like, just doing my own thing, and then, ended up doing a lot of editing. I kept editing stuff for Space Ghost. I was working on Space Ghost out here in LA before I moved out here. I'd done like about 15 episodes in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
So, that's how, and then I started meeting you because you were working for, Klasky Chupo.
Yeah,
and I think that
we had a lot of mutual friends there.
Yeah, and I cut your first Motor City recut reel. Like you had done like a short, like a 5-minute short, and I cut it down to like a minute.
That's right.
As a presentation reel for you.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
Way back in the olden days, that's what I think was at your production company in your house.
Yes.
If I remember.
Yeah, no, it was. It was like I had an Avid up there, and I was like in one of the rooms. So.
Yeah, and that's when the Avids were like a really expensive piece of machinery.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I just got a computer, I'll install the Avid software on it. You had to go through like all the motions of like the correct kind of like disc array and all that shit.
So expensive too. Just to upgrade that system was like $30,000 every year. It was like they had a racket going. They really did. Before Final Cut, they had the ultimate like, you must pay this. Oh, I have to,
Yeah, it's true. And I would use Premiere before Final Cut. So I was even Like, I couldn't afford an Avid.
I know, but you were kind of ahead of the game because now Premiere's still around, and Final Cut, pooped they stopped supporting pros.
Yeah.
They're like, here's the thing for grandma so she can edit together her children's reel. But like now it's like you can't, like, I can't export it. The audio's drifting. It won't read this. It won't. So
yeah, exactly. It's become more of like a consumer, prosumer kind of thing rather than a professional tool. And I hear people saying that's turning around, but who knows?
I just experienced it not turning around. I had to take my movie that I've been making and go right to Premiere because
really
Final Cut had a 28-second audio drift that was not correctable.
Shit.
It was like, yeah, and that's
I'm
kind
sure
of a bummer.
I'm sure they're working on it.
Certainly hope so.
You ended up doing some voices on Space Ghost.
Yeah, the
not Space,
first
on well, you might have on Space Ghost.
I
I was going
did.
to say Aqua Teen.
Well, the first thing
Tell us about both.
Yeah, the first voice I did for Space Ghost was Ceiling Tile. And it was for an episode where Space Ghost's tripping out and he looks up and there's a ceiling tile that fell and it becomes an enemy.
Yeah.
So that was the first voiceover I did. And then for Aqua Teen, I actually designed Aqua Teen's house, their streets that are all made out of like SWAT cats backgrounds that Turner owned, and then built their home.
I didn't know that they're made out of SWAT cats.
Yeah, all the backgrounds, all the cityscapes are all just cut right from SWAT cat backgrounds.
Wow.
And
Somebody should do that. Go on the internet, Google image search the SWAT cat city, Google image search the Aqua Teens.
Yep.
You'll find it.
You'll find
Is
all
that a
those
secret?
backgrounds.
Do people know about this?
Not anymore.
It's not a secret anymore, thanks to Jon Schnepp.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows.
But,
Turner owned them, so
yeah,
it's fine.
Turner owned them. It's totally cool to reuse them. And and like I just remember drawing out Carl's pool, and then I had a friend of mine, Patrick, take all the drawings and turn them into like a 3D, like kind of a very primitive 3D kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what they were for a while. I think they redid a bunch of the backgrounds, but I always look and I'm like, they're still using the grass.
Yeah.
It's like weird because it's like that 3D grass has a very particular look to it.
Making that grass.
But I didn't make it. It was just a rendered thing that Patrick made. But so then I ended up doing a voiceover for the show. I played the Wisdom Cube.
Yeah. So the Wisdom Cube was pretty popular, right? Do you still get requests to like do the Wisdom Cube voice?
Only super fans who know that I did it.
Yeah.
Like if I do a convention or something. I mean, for a while I had a cube, that I would, picture of a cube or whatever, that I would sell, but it's sort of one of those things.
Not so much anymore.
No, I mean, I think they just finally canceled Aqua Teen. They made it to 14 seasons though, which is
pretty
completely
good run.
incredible. So.
Yeah, that's like the craziest run. I remember Dave Willis calling me. I guess I don't know if it was when they were making the pilot or when they were just got greenlit for series, and he was like, "Hey, you know any animators in Atlanta?" And I was like, I know a guy in Birmingham, Alabama. He's like, "Yeah, you don't know about the South, do you? That's too far away." I was like, I don't know. And he's like, "Yeah, we're starting up this cartoon, and it's I need to find people to work on it." And I was like, "What is it?" And he's like, "Well, it's kind of weird. It's like, I guess you could say it's a spin-off of Space Ghost, but not really. It kind of these characters that were on it once, and it's like a Happy Meal that fights crime, and it's kind of like a piece of meat and some fries and a shake, and they don't really do anything." And I was like, "What are you saying?" And he's like, "I don't know, man." And I was like, I don't know what to tell you," and like hung up, and I was like, "Well, fucking good luck with that. I'll never hear about that again." And then, of course, it became this huge hit,
Right?
which deservedly so. It's super funny.
What's funny, originally it was part of this script called the Baffler Meal, and I was actually in Atlanta when they wrote that. They wrote it with one of the guys from, I think it was one of the writers from The Onion, but I was working on another episode, and I remember I went into the writer's room and they had drawn a bunch of Frylock characters. So I drew a Frylock upside down and he would walk with his fries.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of like an octopus. So I was like, that's what I would do if I was designing Frylock. They were like, that's too spooky and creepy, Schnepp. So they were probably smart to not use that design. But
it sounds kind of spooky and creepy.
But
then he's fried leg. He's less fried lock.
Yeah, he's Fry Leg. It's a brand new character.
Yeah, brand new.
Damn.
Frylock's brother,
Yep, Fry Leg.
They could use it, except they
Got
just canceled the show.
Yep, just got canceled. But if they see this, they might reignite the 15th season of Aqua Teen Hunger Force Part 11 or whatever.
They'll come up with a new name for it.
Yeah.
Although, that's probably what'll happen. Like, in a couple months, Laszlo might be like, you know what? Let's just call it something different. Mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Put him in
He won't be mad at Willis anymore.
Put him in the jungle.
He'll be like, I forgive Willis. Come back and do another.
Well, he's in there
episode."
every day, you know. Even
Well.
though he still has to work on all the projects and stuff. It's almost like it's not any different.
I know, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, so I worked on Aqua Teen and designed the backgrounds and then did some voices for it, and it was fun.
and then I remember, in our very first Titmouse office, the one that was in that storefront and that weird building. And
Oh, yeah.
stuff, edit room in there.
That's right.
We'll talk about that when we do the swap room.
Okay.
All right, this is the fun part where we get to see what the other guy drew, and then we can draw on it. So we can untape them, and we'll pass them over, and keep drawing pictures. How do you like it so far? Is that all right?
What's that?
Dude, sitting here drawing pictures,
Oh, that's awesome.
bullshitting and stuff.
Yeah, it's kick-ass.
Yeah, I like
This
it.
didn't even feel like work.
I know, it's fun, right?
Remember, you were like, I forgot to drink. I haven't drank.
Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
drink any. It's like the ice is all
You
melted.
forget. There's more ice. You need more ice? Oh, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's kind of half comic strip, half
Yeah.
weirdo.
That's good. That's
Cerebro.
good for filling in. Nice. Gonna use the pencil sharpener. To be sharpened.
All right.
So,
So I was at the old Titmouse, which was
Yeah.
over on. It was also on Santa Monica.
yeah, that was on Santa Monica and
Fairfax.
between Fairfax and Hayworth.
Yeah.
It was this old weird, it was like a TV repair shop that was almost certainly some kind of like front for selling some kind of
Right.
hardcore drugs.
You're like,
I'm
they don't
guessing-
repair TVs
I'm guessing
anymore.
either heroin or meth based on the clientele that would come in there. There'd be guys like, where's the TV shop go? You know, like, there's no TV shop in here anymore. Get out! You know,
Oh,
we had to
man.
get really aggressive with
Oh,
them.
no.
It was like Matt Hale was in the front there, and he's like such
Sure.
a smiley faced, like boyish
Cherubic,
guy,
yeah.
but he would get so fucking angry.
Whoa.
Like he would like when he had to like Hulk out, he was pretty scary. You know,
Right.
he'd be like, "Get the fuck out of here!" It was pretty funny. I actually had to do it once.
Oh, no.
I cut it. Yeah, I'm a very gentle person. I'm sure, as you know,
Right.
like I'm not a very controversial guy, but once there was a homeless guy just peeing on our like inside on our front, like in our front, like like vestibule area, and it just like saw red,
snapped.
and I was like, well, you can't pee in here. And I remember I had my dog at the time, Midget, who wasn't doing it. I was like, Midget. And then she was just like all happy, like just started licking his pee up and stuff. And I'm like, what? You're no good. So I had to like physically like push him out the door. He's like, hey.
Oh,
And
man.
I'm like, man, you can't pee in here. You got to get out. It was like trying to push him out and close the door, but I ended up like slamming the door on him, which wasn't really intentional. But I
Right.
think, you know.
But, you know,
made
he
him
should have
feel
at
like
least
it was
stopped peeing
crazy.
when you're yelling at him to stop peeing.
Yeah, exactly. So, so anyway, you were editing in there. I remember you were working for, was it for Channel 101? What was that stuff for?
I believe.
It was some kind of like crazy, weird, like almost like 70s cop show.
Oh yeah,
like, mystery show.
Yeah,
thing.
it was called Sunday Detective Film Theater.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it was a thing I did with this guy Eric Hoffman.
yeah.
It was for Channel 101, and it was I think it was the very first episode was Dickerson PE. It was like a phys ed coach who solved crimes. It was very
Yeah.
much like a tongue-in-cheek kind of Columbo, but on a much dumber and lower scale. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, we had Paul F. Tompkins was in it. And it was a really fun little short to make for the Channel 101 guys.
Yeah.
And I want to say I was like doing I think it was just that. I was gonna say it was maybe the Lampshades video, but I think I did that a little bit later. So yeah.
I cannot remember. I remember the cop show. That's what I
Yeah,
remember
no,
the
it was
most.
definitely the Dickerson thing. So
Yeah.
that was fun.
Cool. Yeah, it was good times in there. We had that little room. It was good, I think, for both of us, because that was back in the days when I was like, I don't know how long this is going to last. I hope I can pay the rent.
Sure.
I hope we can keep this weird thing going.
Well, you guys had the upstairs. I think Shannon had like a little art gallery upstairs.
Yeah, yeah.
You had
exactly.
you had your own office filled with a ton of tech stuff and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. It was that, like, that's when I would do the wiring myself. I would do all the fucking construction and wiring myself. I'm
He
sure
was
you
actually
can
really
understand.
he was actually good. I was always impressed. Like he had all these like arrays and raids and all these, a whole bunch of stuff all kind of like connected together. It was always that kind of like,
The
damn,
tech
that's
stuff I was
awesome.
half decent at. The construction stuff, it was so seat of my pants. Like, I did a thing where I stepped off the room, right? Like, I was like, okay, the upstairs, I think this wall is over this other wall downstairs, but I'm
Right.
not sure.
Right.
So I like stepped it off, and I'm like, all right, I think, like, I'm not directly above, like, our kind of what would have been called our server room,
Right.
which was just like a stupid little rack with the one server that Max built us,
Right.
And I was like, all right, I don't know how much space is in between this floor and the other floor, and I have no permits. I have no idea if there's fucking electrical wires in here. I don't have the building plan. I'm just gonna saw a hole in the floor and just stick my arm in all the way up to my elbow and just drill and see if it comes out of the ceiling. And I knew if I went on a diagonal, it would probably come into the corner, and it
Right.
did. And I was like, fuck it, I made it through the ceiling. So then I like snaked all the wires through and just ran all the fucking
That sounds
Cat
slightly
6 cables
dangerous.
through the ceiling. Yeah, and like who knows what was in there? It was all like weird dust, probably asbestos and fucking who knows whatever kind of fucked up shit.
Different delicious things that you should not be
But
breathing.
now we've got a situation with people who know what they're doing to make the computers work good, and we get permits to build bathrooms and shit. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
do it all real
It's a whole
style.
nother
Professional
level of
style.
being able to do stuff. Yeah, it's nuts. But yeah, and I remember that's the time where I met you through like mostly through Ariel and Dave Foss. I think were the two folks that I was working with over at Klasky who
Right.
who recommended you. And then I'd say like shortly after that, it seemed like, it's funny, as you get older, longer spans of time seem shorter.
Right.
Back then, I think it was like within a year that we had started working on Metalocalypse, because that was like 2004 that we had that thing. Maybe 2003 at the latest, but it was like 2003, 2004.
It was
2005 we had started working.
Yeah, it was
on
2003 when I did
okay.
that short
That must
over at
have
your
been that.
place.
So within 2 years, maybe a year and a half,
Yeah.
it's interesting because we had gotten our first like main studio building, I'd call it, to do this show, Chico and Guapo, which you also worked on an iteration of that.
I never worked on it. I worked next to the people like Freddie Christie,
Oh, yeah,
who worked
Freddie.
on it. He actually worked on it. I was just working on the Orlando Jones show in 2003.
Yeah, that was the best thing that came out of that Chico and Guapo was meeting Freddie. I gotta say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freddie is a fucking awesome person, man.
He is.
Freddie. You guys don't know Freddie.
Yeah.
Should know
Missing
Freddie.
out on
Yeah,
Freddie.
you're missing out without knowing Freddie. So those guys. So anyway, we ended up buying this building, and I remember our accountant was like, "Dude, you can't afford this building. There's no way you should ever be buying a building. It's crazy. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough equity. You don't have enough anything." But we were able to somehow scam the bank into thinking that they should give us a loan. It was before the financial crash. This was 2005, so I don't think they would have ever let us do it these days. And the idea was like, hey, we just got this show picked up, Chico and Guapo. We're going to make it. And then what happened was they ended up pulling the show from us and doing it at this other studio because they didn't feel, they kind of looked, we had just moved in, and they're like, you're not going to be ready to do this. And we're like, what? It's the same. We did it in that storefront.
Right.
This is an even better spot. And then they ended up doing it, and they wanted all these things. The creators wanted to do records in-house and all these things that we're like, yeah, we could totally set that up, build a sound booth, all this stuff. and they ended up doing it at this company, One Red Room, who ended up going out of business because of that show. So I'm kind of glad in retrospect we didn't do it. We kind of had this shitty situation in the meantime where it's like, fuck, all right, we can afford the mortgage for 3 months, and that burns through all of our money. So I had to like hustle and get work. And it happened that Nick Weidenfeld came by and he's like, hey, we got a couple jobs coming up. This minority report, or minority team, and they kind of had their art staff set up. They just needed like a building. I was like, that doesn't seem too interesting. Like, we want to be creatively involved. And then they were like, I don't think this is controversial because everybody in the animation industry knows this now. Boondocks was like having a lot of trouble in their first season. He's like, this Boondocks needs help. Maybe we could set up like a kind of like satellite Boondocks team here to like kind of get that show in shape. I was like, that sounds bad. Like, I've heard about that.
Right.
Like, that sounds like I don't want to be in the first project that we do a troubled production. Right. We have to like save in our like kind of like half built studio.
Sure, brand new.
And they're like, oh, and there's also this show Death Clock, and it's Brendan Small, and I've been working with Brendan on this sci-fi project.
Right.
And Tommy Blotch, and I was working with Tommy on that Chico and Guapo project, and Jon Schnepp, and I was like, oh, I know Schnepp from, so I was like, well, that's clearly the one, because first of all, they need directors, they need this thing set up, they want to work with you. I know Schnepp, I know Tommy, I know Brendan, I've worked with all of them, so
yeah, it was ideal.
It was a good fucking situation.
It was kind of like one of those perfect fit situations, because like that year was basically the year that like I had just stopped doing my own cartoon business. I was like, I don't want to do King Robo was mainly just doing either like graphics, packaging, you know, and it was like, well, Titmouse seems like you were like really high on this Flash thing. And I remember I was like,
Schnepp is going to work.
I was very unconvinced.
Cool.
And you were like, I have this puppet thing, and you showed me the puppet thing, and I was like, I don't know. And it actually worked out great.
Yeah,
it was like it's funny because like I'd never worked on a cartoon show like Metalocalypse where everything was completely, and on a bigger production tip, like all the stuff that I had been in charge of was always like my 3-man team, you know, it was like 3 dudes, you know, or 2 guys and a gal. It was like very small production. And this became, you know, I think we had at one point, like at the first season, we had like 65 people working on it. It was a lot of people.
Yeah, I can't remember how many, but it was a lot.
Doing it in Flash, it actually became such a boon for the show and for directing and for being able to make things like change stuff on the fly. Like, hey man, that arm looks weird. You could just walk right up to the artist and be like, hey man, the way you move that arm, can you do it like this? And they'd be like, oh, of course. Instead of like, you know, shipping it out overseas somewhere and waiting for 16 weeks to get, oh, the eyes are still outside of the skull. Can you fix that? You know? Like stuff that I ended up doing much later, working on a show, you know, was like, you know, that was shipped overseas. It was like, you know what? I'd much rather work in-house with all the artists present because it's just so much better. Yeah. And it's hard to describe it to someone who's never done that before. So, you know, but you live by experience, I think. So.
I remember that, right? And this, I don't know if I told you this story before, but either way, you will hear it again.
Tell me it again or fresh.
When we first started, you know, working on stuff, I mean, I knew you and we had been in the same series, but I hadn't actually worked on a show with you, right? And I respected you comedically and stuff, but as we started, you know, you directed the first 3 and I came on the 4th episode, and I was like starting to do all this, I was like, hey man, how are you, you know, since we're not doing sheets or these traditional ways, exposure sheets are like a way that you would tell the animators overseas to do timing and stuff, and it was all brand new. There wasn't really a pipeline for what we were doing. We were figuring it out. We were on like the forefront of figuring out this new pipeline, and you were like, I don't do any of that shit. I just like cut the animatic, make sure it works, and like talk to the animators. And I was like, wow, is that gonna work? That seems insane. Like, there's no system, like there's no, he's not writing down the like number of frames each action should take. And I remember I was like, fuck, I was like, I don't know if that's gonna work. I can't use Schnepp's system. Like I gotta fucking do timing. So on the first one, I remember I gave and it's all young animators, right? Like people who hadn't worked in the traditional system. Maybe we had like a couple. I don't even think Jody was on the show. That wasn't anybody who had worked in like traditional animation studios at the time. I don't think so. At least I could be forgetting somebody. Forgive me if I forgot.
Oh, right.
Anyone's experience. Anyway, so I did all this like slugging, like I did all this stuff where I was like, Oftenson like lifts box like in 12 frames, overshoots 2 frames, sets box down, settle 4 frames, like did all this pre-production work for stuff. Anyway, we start doing dailies and we'd do shared dailies, right? So it would be like we'd all get in, I'd see stuff from your episodes, I'd see stuff from my episodes. All the shit that I did was super fucking stilted. And all the shit that you, from your episodes, looked great because you just acted it out for them.
Right.
And they could see you, and they were good animators, so they just did it. And they didn't know the system that I was trying to teach them.
That's awesome.
Of this old school way of like giving them like frames to do. So I was like, fuck this shit. Why am I working so hard? Like writing down how many frames, all this shit. I'm just going to act shit out for them. And then it works so much better.
I had no idea
so
that
much
helped
easier.
Influence you.
Yeah, I was like, fuck this shit. I'm working too hard. Yeah.
That's right. I'm trying to remember. I was like, because I remember like your first episode was the Moose Crackish, and I remember the creature itself. Did you animate that, or who did that animation on it?
I did a lot of like keys for it. Yeah, and then Goo redrew them like really
well animated.
And then I realized we don't have time to do that shit.
Right, but there's some of it where it's like already dying and stuff. Really crazy, awesome. But yeah, I mean that's just like because of the way QuickTime and the animatics and Flash work, that system just works great.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. So we worked on a ton of episodes. We co-directed episodes together.
We did.
So
we did the last one and the first one from season 2. We did a couple of them. It was fun.
And that was good. I felt like we worked well together on those.
For sure.
It was split up the tasks logically.
Insane workload.
Yeah,
It's like that's the one thing about Metalocalypse that I'll always remember is like not only was it one of the funnest jobs I've ever done in my life, the first and second season were bar none the coolest and most freeing creatively jobs I've ever worked on. But it was also just so much work because at the time I think we really wanted to make, it's not like we didn't want to make the show great in 3 or 4, but at that time we were pushing ourselves like it doesn't matter, we need every single scene has to be amazing, and then the budget was like disappearing.
We had a really low budget back then. I mean Adult Swim has gotten better over the years as far as budgets and stuff as they've become more successful, but I don't think it would surprise anybody out there to know that those were really low budget shows. We really were like, well, you want the compositing to be fancy? Well, then you're doing it. It's like you and I did so much compositing on our own episodes and even on each other's episodes.
We would always be like, hey dude, can you do these 3 shots? And it was such an incredible mountain of work, but I'm really proud of all those episodes. It's like, that's the cool thing is like when you do something like that. I remember like, it happened in both seasons 1 and 2. It would come down to, it was just us and 3 other people for like the last 2 months where we were doing everything. But it's like ultimately it's more satisfying when you're doing everything because you're seeing it and you're finishing it and you're you know what I mean? It's like a check process. It would
generally be like you, me, Antonio, Felipe, like on the just in those like dark hours.
And 1 or 2 compositors, one or 2 retake animators. And it was just like, all right, let's get this thing going.
And man, I gotta say, from my perspective, from a studio perspective, thank goodness for Steve Kellner, right?
Oh yeah.
Because Steve Kellner was the one guy who would not shed. We were all running 1,000 miles per hour just trying to get the shit done. And Steve would be like, hey man, we need a pipeline and a system. You need to label the files like in a logical way. You need to keep them on the server and keep them, and like, I was always like, we need Steve Kellner on these shows. Man.
Well, he was the most prepared, and he would label everything.
Well, he came from traditional animation.
Right.
A lot of people, a lot of compositors that went through the system. I mean, pretty much. I mean, until later years, when basically Steve Kellner brought his friends on, like Darren and those guys, and like Mike O'Donnell and these later guys. He was the only guy who had worked on like traditionally planned animation. And he'd be like, I remember originally he's like, there's no exposure sheets. I don't know how long to make this camera move, and I don't know. You said like make it look cool and put explosions in it. Like it doesn't have the timing of these explosions. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, man, that's the way it's gonna be.
Just wing it, dude.
You're not gonna get it.
Just make it look cool.
Walk away. He got way better.
He got incredibly good, man. I remember like I was one of those guys in the first year cracking on calendar. It was like, hey, he's not adding shadows. But you have to tell him to do that. I was like, I got to tell him all the time. And then he just like over time just started not only just adding and plussing every scene, but just knowing, like when you're like, do this and add that, he's like, okay.
Yeah.
He's a man of few words, Kellner, but he definitely really started to rock it.
He's got words. If you talk to him about the right shit. If you talk to him about Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah.
Then
you can't shut Kellner up.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you see, in Battle of the Planet Apes, all right, I can't handle it anymore. Can you take your box set with the Caesar head and go over there? I don't want to.
That's a good box set.
I know it is. You know what, Kellner? I'm talking to you. You're the one who was naysaying Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I remember. And I remember telling you, watch, man, it's going to be a good movie.
I like those new Planet of the Apes movies.
I know.
Man,
he does too. They're good.
That last one, oh my goodness. If you guys haven't seen it, I'm sure you have. If you're watching this, you've probably seen it.
Right.
But, man, if you want to see an ape screaming, shooting a machine gun, riding on a horse in front of a wall of flames, that movie is for you.
Yeah.
It delivers on that.
Apes on horses.
Yeah, it sure does.
So what do you think of this new Star Wars stuff? I'm flipping it now. I'm asking Chris a question.
Oh man, I'm hopeful. I gotta say I'm hopeful because I really dug that first Star Trek movie, and I remember thinking at the time, this feels more like a Star Wars movie in a way. It had a lot of kind of Star Warsy and fun.
Or you mean the exact same plot of Star Wars? Basically, you just draped Star Wars over Star Trek.
You said it, not me.
Yeah.
But
Kirk, you're going to play Luke, and Obi-Wan's going to be over in this starship. In Mos Eisley. So anyway, yeah.
So, but yeah, I feel like I'm going to give it a shot. I was really jaded on it, like a lot of people after those first few. And I got to say, that's the thing. Like, it was back when Titmouse was first starting. It was when we were in that storefront.
Right.
I got the call. My friend George Christic got a job writing.
Yeah.
On the CG Clone Wars series when it first came out, right?
Right.
And or not even when it first came out, when it was first like greenlit or whatever you call it. And he was like, "Hey man, they're looking for a supervising director, and I recommended you, and they're really interested in meeting with you." And I was like, fuck, it's Star Wars. Like, I could work on the Star Wars series. Like, there hasn't been a Star Wars
ever
animated series. I mean, Gendy did those shorts, but there hasn't been like a big Star Wars entity for a long time. And I was like, but then I was like, man, I don't think I'm the. I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't think I'm the guy. I don't really love it anymore. And it was about the new universe, and I was like, man, I don't think I could fucking do it. And
right.
It's like we're just starting to get this Titmouse thing rolling, and I was like, at the time I was working on that Avatar of the Last Airbender as like a layout consultant. I would go in and like give notes on people's layouts and shit because Brian Konietzko was too busy, and he's like, I like the way you draw, and you just fucking tell him what to do. So I'd go in and like, whatever. I'm kind of getting off topic, but one of the directors on Avatar is this guy Dave Filoni.
Sure.
We go to lunch, and he would be the guy arguing that the new Star Wars movies were good. He'd be like, no matter what, he would have the argument. He's like, they're still great. They're still Star Wars. I still love them. And he'd have like point by point arguments that were like actually convincing, even though,
you would say Jar Jar.
Yeah, exactly. And he had counter arguments to all that stuff. And I was like, man, the guy who should do this is Dave Filoni. And I gave him a call. I was like, hey man, I'm going to recommend you. And then he called me. He's like, dude, I can fucking believe this. I got the job.
That's awesome.
And he's been doing it ever since.
I got to say,
that guy's been doing it ever since.
That guy, Dave Filoni, just made the new Rebels season 2 with Darth Vader. And I saw like an advanced copy of the first 2 episodes just like last week. And it was the most Star Wars of the Star Wars thing that I've seen. It's better than Lucas. It felt like Star Wars to me.
That's great.
And I didn't watch the other Clone Wars. or the first season of Rebels either. But for some reason, this guy that I do this talk show with was like, "You've got to watch it, Schnepp. You've just got to watch it." And I watched the trailer, and I was like, "Wow, the trailer was cool, but that doesn't mean the episode's going to be cool."
Yeah.
Then I watched those 2 back-to-back episodes, and it really just he really captured what those original trilogies had.
That's cool. And I mean, he gets to sit with Lucas all the time, and he said he learned like tremendous amounts of just like filmmaking from sitting in there, because he's like, that guy knows a fucking lot. Like, he, you know, he's like, a lot of people shit on him, but don't forget, you fucking loved everything he made up until a couple years ago, you know.
Well, you know, the way I look at Lucas, I didn't love everything he made up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But I respect him as a visionary and as an artist because he gave us everything that we use now.
Yeah.
His ILM was the place where Photoshop was created.
Yeah.
He created the Editoroid, which then became the Avid, which was the forefather of non-linear digital.
Lightworks or something?
What?
I think that what he called it was like the proto-Avid.
No, it was called the Editoroid.
The Editoroid.
Yeah, it was actually called the Editoroid, and then they changed the name to Avid.
Nice.
So he's responsible for non-linear digital editing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like...
No, he was a great, like...
Let alone THX sound and all these like brand new sound designs. So, yeah, I mean, I give him a lot of respect. I'm also really glad that he decided to, you know, let other people play in his sandbox doing the Star Wars movies.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I'm real curious to see how a bunch of these pan out, like the Boba Fett movie.
Right.
I mean, everybody's going to want to see that, right?
Yeah. Some people are like, I don't like Boba Fett. Why is he a character? And it's like, I don't know, because he's cool looking. And he was the first action figure that I got that was after Star Wars. It was like, who is this strange character? Boba Fett.
Exactly.
So,
that's the reason.
yeah.
I think everybody
it's
loves
like
Boba Fett.
Yeah, nostalgia. He's like, and he's a cool design. Like the guy who designed it, Joe Johnson, did a great design. Originally, it was supposed to be a stormtrooper.
Yeah, so much better.
Really, we're getting really extra nerdy right now. So, originally, he was supposed to be a stormtrooper.
I know.
So, so what are you up to these days?
Well, let's see. These days, I started last year. I'm sorry, 2.5 years ago. I started making a documentary about this Superman movie that never got made. Tim Burton was going to direct it.
I backed it on Kickstarter.
Yeah. Chris P. backed it. A lot of people backed it on Kickstarter, and it's been a long journey to make the film and to finish it the way I wanted to. But I'm very happy with it, and we premiered it like 2 months ago in May here in Hollywood, and then we took it over to London, and every review we've gotten has been positive.
Dude, I gotta say,
it's been pretty crazy.
You know how when you're nervous for your friend and you're like, oh man, I'm going to see Schnepp's movie. I hope it's good. It's good. And man, it exceeded my expectations.
Oh, right on,
I was
man.
Super happy.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk to you because the
so
premiere was
good,
crazy.
Man.
So
like, and man, that I don't know how much you want to do, like talk about things or whatever. We can always cut it out if you don't want to say it. But the fact that you got the John Peters interview, man, did that really make it work so good? Like, that is such a good through line. And I remember running into you on the sidewalk. We have a lot of sidewalk meetings.
Yeah.
Because we're right here,
my office is in the vicinity.
In between our two Titmouse buildings. So we run into each other a lot. And you were talking about, I don't know about this one interview I'm going to do. I cut it kind of like Space Ghost, a little weird. I'm taking sips out of the water bottle. And man, was that one of my favorite parts of that movie.
Yeah, so it was it was a weird decision because I was like unsure about it.
So much.
Thanks, man.
I think you made the right decision there for sure.
I did have to fight for that one because it was strange and obtuse, but I found myself during the course of the movie finding areas where I was like, it just felt natural to add something like that because it was like, oh, it's a perfect break between this section and this section, and it gives a little, respite from the process of the actual interviewing. So
yeah, it worked. I think that was a great decision because that's kind of like your point of view as a filmmaker. I think that was good to show your like sensibility in it.
Right on. Yeah. So making that film was very hard, and I'm really glad that it's pretty much almost done.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's never done, right?
It's never done. We're still working on the Blu-ray features, but we'll be, we'll be putting it out. And if you want to buy it, you can get it digitally at www.tdoslwh.com. tdoslwh.com. That's The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened. and you can digitally buy it now. It'll be available, the regular movie. You can get all different kinds of versions of it and extra features and stuff. So definitely buy it right now.
Let's really quick take a step back and like, how did this movie come about? Like, what made you decide to make this movie?
For me, the decision to actually make the feature film was after thinking about it for several months. But I was just talking about like the film with friends, and my personal interest in the concept art that I'd been collecting on my desktop for probably about 4 or 5 years. Like I would just search for Superman Lives concept art. Why? Because I thought the concept art was different and kind of had this heavy metal vibe that I really dug. It was like outer space, different. It just was different than all the Superman movies. So,
oh, that's the end of our thing, but we could keep bullshitting. So, yeah, you could wrap that thought up.
Yeah. So that, you know, I'd been collecting all this artwork, and you know, I ended up meeting one of the special effects artists. His name was Steve Johnson, and I just felt like after meeting him and talking with him, I talked to some friends about it, and they were like, wow, your interest is really cool, and it makes me want to see something. You should make a documentary. And I was like, I don't make documentaries. And I had just done a Kickstarter, you know, previously with you guys, and that was kind of successful. We did a little short animated film. So people were like, why don't you try doing it on Kickstarter? And so a couple of months later, I was like, you know what? If no one's going to do this movie, I'm the only person who's going to make this movie, and I actually wouldn't mind seeing this movie. So I did a Kickstarter. It was really successful. Ended up trying to make the film for like a year and a half, went broke, did another fundraiser, got finishing funds, and finished the film, and you know, now it's playing, and I'm very happy with the results. So
nice, dude. So I normally ask if they want to plug something. I don't know if you just did the plug that you want to do, but if you want to plug anything else, you could plug anything else.
Yeah, you could follow me at Jon Schnepp, just at JONSCHNEPP, just on Twitter and Instagram, and you can go to my YouTube channel, Schnepp Zone, and you know, follow and check out a bunch of my videos and stuff that are on there. Once again, you could also follow the movie at TDOSLWH. That's the Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to buy the movie, it's only going to be available at my website.
Nice.
So it's TDOSLWH.com. Yeah, pretty much. I talked to a lot of different companies, and I just felt like, just especially the way everything is right now, why not try it?
Try it out.
Yeah, we'll see how it works.
Yeah. Buy the movie.
Yeah. Check out the film. You might like this documentary.
You might like it. You like Supermans.
You like Nicolas Cage.
You like weirdo shit.
You like Kevin Smith.
It's
got all that.
Things.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, John. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
This is a fun time. We drew some pictures. So now's the time where sign that one, and I'll sign this one, and then we go sign each other's, and then we both signed it.
Awesome.
Sign it, and then we'll walk around and sign each other's things, and then we did it. And that's the end of this episode of The Tongue and Pencil.